NBA, the MLB. There's plenty of cases of players being found guilty of altering a match, of the sex toys being thrown at WNBA games. They're making millions off it.
You mentioned the money goes to Asia.
We need to take a dive in the 5th round. And they're making hundred thousands of euros for shady Asian betting syndicates.
It sounds like you're saying Saudi Arabia kind of bought FIFA.
We're dancing to the Saudi tune in world football. You're now digging into one of the biggest controversies in world sport.
I was surprised that there was actual human trafficking in sports.
Sports is one of the main vectors for human trafficking. They have every intention of making as much money as possible. So the World Cup is going to be glorious for that.
I feel like a dumbass for not realizing that's the point.
This is genuinely one of the most innovative criminal threats you've seen in years. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
My wife, Jen, who you met earlier, she's convinced that all big sports are rigged, which I don't necessarily agree with. But after I read a bunch of your articles, I was like, okay, maybe soccer. Maybe, right? And then it was, as I kept watching your videos and reading your articles on your website, which I'll link in the show notes, I was like, okay, definitely soccer. and then I was like, but why not other sports then? Because look, maybe the higher the league, aside with the exception again of soccer, football, the higher the league, like NBA, the scandal would be maybe too much because the thing is too profitable. But then as you kind of like chunk down to these smaller leagues that are a little bit more isolated in different places, you're like, actually the profit from rigging matches and things like that, it starts to eclipse merch for a LeBron jersey or whatever.
I mean, let me flip that on its head.
Sure.
You absolutely have match fixing, and especially what's called spot fixing at the NBA level. There's a case being prosecuted right now at the NBA level, in the Premier League in the UK for soccer. But the lower down the leagues you go, you get these players who are making absolutely good money, but for whom still, I'm going to pay you $20,000, $50,000 not to fix the result of a match, because that's way too difficult for a team
Single
sport.
player, yeah.
But to rig a specific point of the match, I want you to get under 10 points in that match and then get subbed out with an injury. Or I want you, if it's soccer, to get a yellow card before the 20th minute and get one of your friends to get it before the 40th minute. That's it.
That's it.
That's all you have to do. Because
so people are betting like, I bet he gets a yellow card before the first 40 minutes or whatever.
I mean, they're not deciding to bet on that because sports books are offering what are called spot bets. And it's ridiculous. You can bet on any eventuality of, LeBron's going to get 4 fouls that game. Or, Jordan Harbinger is going to get sent off with a red card. Or there's going to be more than 4 goals or less than 4 goals. So you can manipulate any of that. I'll give you an example.
As a non-gambler, though, I was like, I didn't even understand that, right? Because I'm like, oh, you just bet that the Mavs are going to win or lose. I didn't realize that you can bet on this person's going to get this much playtime and then get injured in the second half or whatever specific weird thing.
And it's alarming. These are both legal and illegal. These are on both legal and illegal betting sites.
Okay.
But you can see on one 4th division soccer match in England, there'll be a $200,000 bet in total on a player getting a yellow card for that match.
Jeez.
Or it'll be a series of bets, right, parsed out of 8 matches, that team over 8 matches is going to get X number of yellow cards. To make that happen, you don't need to control a lot of people. 2, 3 players, maybe a ref if it's, a number of goals, or a ref if it's a penalty that he's going to give at a certain time. The only way to identify those are looking at betting odds, right? So you got these betting companies, these integrity companies that are just monitoring all bets. And when they see something absolutely aberrant, they'll flag it. And the sportsbook will stop taking bets on that match.
I didn't realize. So there are companies that look at bets and go, this doesn't make sense.
I mean, you're now digging into one of the biggest controversies in world sport. The way that betting data is given, so a federation, the NBA or the MLB, will sell their data to a data company. You've got Sport Radar, Genius Sports, a couple of others. Those companies will then sell that data to the betting companies. But they're also going to sell the integrity services. So it's a little bit ironic that the company that's selling the betting data is then in charge of monitoring that same data.
Right.
You can see the controversy.
That's like we've investigated ourselves and we found that we've done nothing wrong, kind of.
It's more like we've sort of developed the disease and we're also selling the cure.
Yeah, like I have an ice pack for that wound on your face. What? I don't have a wound on my face. And then wham.
Absolutely.
Right in the kisser. Yeah, this is really surprising, but also, I mean, hashtag business, hashtag capitalism, right? If you're going to create something like this, it's it makes sense that they would create these air quotes solutions. But I want to dive into some of the juicier topics because it actually gets dark really fast. It's not just about, and we'll get back to gambling, but it's not just about betting on yellow cards and red cards. I was surprised that there was actual human trafficking in sports. Is this especially European? Because I've never heard of this in the United States, but who knows?
It's more in Europe than anywhere else, but it's spreading. Sports is one of the main vectors for human trafficking. Let me give you a story.
Yeah.
3 years ago, Nigerian kid, 15-year-old, great football player, soccer player.
Yeah.
His name is Jerry.
You can say football. I'm from Michigan. Yeah.
Posts, highlights of his career on Instagram and TikTok, and he gets called by a football agent. He gets a message on Instagram saying, hey, you're the next Messi, you're the next Ronaldo.
Wow.
Let me take you to Europe. I'll make you rich. He signs with the agent. The agent says, no problem at all. I've already got the club lined up for you. But you need to pay me just for the passport, for the visa, for the admin. It's about 8,000 euros, something which a Nigerian family usually cannot afford.
Right.
Kid flies out. He's 15. That's illegal already. He spends...
Why is that illegal?
So FIFA regulation, so FIFA is the governing body for football, stipulates that under 18, there are very limited circumstances in which a player of that age can be transferred, and certainly not intercontinentally, and certainly not that far away from his home.
I see.
And anyway, if you're signing a player at that age, he better be, an international level player. Right? An average player from northern Nigeria doesn't qualify. He is parked in Serbia, in southern Serbia, at a dead-end football academy, and forced to pay $1,500 every month.
Oof. How is he getting that money, though?
That, his family, his community, believing that he's going to make it.
Oh, so they're just scamming this kid and his entire extended network.
And tens of thousands of others. After 2 years, on his 17th birthday, or just after, Jerry rebels. Says, I'm not paying anymore, I'm out. The agent beats the shit out of him.
Oh, man.
Kid posts on Instagram, cut lip, blood all over his clothes, explaining the whole thing. Because he did that, he got attention. He had 500,000 followers on Instagram. He got sent home and he's okay. There are tens of thousands of kids not okay.
Right.
All over Europe, increasingly in the Middle East, increasingly in Asia, and in the US.
So this might sound kind of ridiculous, but it sounds like they're in a soccer prison camp.
They're either in soccer prison camps, depending on how organized it is. Here in Portugal, 2 years ago, one of the main football owners of the league was running one of these illegal camps with 140 kids in it.
Are they getting training, or are they just being milked for
they're
money?
Being milked.
Wow.
They're being milked. Occasionally, they'll do a friendly match. There's a hope that one of them might make it and he can sell them, but usually they don't. And these kids were from Kazakhstan, Costa Rica, Congo, ending up in a camp near Porto. In the US, it's soccer increasingly, but it's basketball. Kids from Africa being promised NBA trials. It's baseball, Dominican Republic, Venezuelan kids being promised careers in the MLB. And they're being milled. And no one pays attention to it because sport has this, magic reputation.
And also because it's kind of, I'm trying to think as a prosecutor here. Maybe I'll use my law degree for a minute. How do I prove, hey, these kids are not just at an overpriced, expensive, probably a poor decision to send your kid to baseball camp? How is this actual human trafficking? Well, they promised him that he would get a career in baseball. Well, okay, but then you willingly paid for him to go there and he can't leave. Okay, well, we'll go and look. Of course these kids can leave, but they don't want to. They're getting trained. Does anybody want to leave? And they're all like, well, they said they'd, beat my ass or end my career or hurt my family if I said anything. So I'm just going to practice baseball in the corner until these cops go away. I mean, it's just really hard to prove that this is happening unless somebody escapes. And then the narrative is they were disgruntled because they weren't talented enough to make it. So now they're pissed off at us and they're making all this crap up.
No, and usually they're illegal immigrants.
And they're here illegally.
So what if they report it, they're going to get deported anyway, right?
Right.
But there's even more than that. These kids, if they make it, the few of them who do make it into professional sports, usually at a very low level, are then perfect targets for match fixing. So then they're going to be leaned on to say, hey, we need you to take a dive in the 5th round or take a card in the 40th minute. And they're making hundreds of thousands of euros for shady Asian betting syndicates, and they're making a pittance.
I see. Okay, so before we move on to the match fixing, because I'm interested in that as well, of course, how many people are being trafficked annual? Do you have any idea how many sort of are?
There's a figure that's often thrown around that it's 10 to 20,000. You'll see that in UN reports. I think that's a bit generous. I think it's in the thousands of children a year.
Still, though, it's so weird. It sounds like a low number, but it's also, think about how many kids that is, and they're just being scammed. And it's not just them that's being scammed, right? It's their families are being. So if you're taking 10 grand, 15 grand from a Nigerian kid's family, that's like multiple people's life savings, potentially.
We had a case in northern Cameroon where an imam, like if this is a Muslim country, the kid was a talented football player. He couldn't afford to pay what the agent was asking. The imam did like a collection in the community. The kid took the money, gave it to the agent. The agent disappeared, and the imam took his life.
His own life?
The religious leader who'd made the call. He took his life.
He took his own. Wow. That's horrible.
And I would imagine that has happened on multiple occasions, or, you've at least ruined these families.
Oh my goodness.
The weird thing is in Europe, nobody talks about it. Everybody knows about it, but you ask the leagues, they're like, it's not our problem. These kids are not playing for our league. FIFA's like, they're not in our system. You go to West African countries, where I've been a lot, most recently to Senegal. It's an open knowledge. I went to a conference and spoke to a room full of players. Half of them had been contacted. Many of them had been trafficked and come back to the country. One mother of a player came up to me and said, "Oh, don't expose this." Why? Because my kid got trafficked, but if we got enough money, I'll send him again.
Why would she send him again? I don't understand.
Because the dream of having a child making it and being able to, not even being a Messi or Ronaldo, but making a salary that for Senegal it's generational wealth. Mm-hmm. And even some of the kids I interviewed in Paris were telling me, well, it's better to be homeless here than to live back home in Senegal.
Oof,
and I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong. That's their right to say that.
Right, but that's imagine making that choice consciously. Like, okay, this didn't work out, and I live on the floor on a mattress in a barn in Slovakia, but it's still better than living in wherever they came from.
For sure.
That's really awful. Okay, so back to match fixing. These people are prime targets for match fixing because they need money. Their families need money. They were promised money and aren't getting it, and now they're being paid. I don't know, what does a Division 5 footballer make in Europe?
I mean, it's an average wage at that Division 4, Division 5. You're talking a few $1,000s a month. It's nowhere near a professional football at the top level, but it's not enough to be dissuaded. On top of that, your agent often has your passport. He can often end your career. So there's added pressure for you not to be deported, for your dream to make it, and you're one of the precious few who did make it into a professional team.
Oh, so yeah, you're already in the top 0.1%. Why screw it up now? And your agent is also the one helping the crime syndicates ask you to do fix the match. How does match fixing work? I mean, just telling you to not score, I suppose, could be a thing. Telling you to score more, if that's what they're all trying to do, so you can't do that. Where's the leverage?
Imagine the relationship between a drug trafficker and his next client. First, it's a hit. You need to do it. We'll pay you a good amount of money. Once you've done it once, they've got you. Because of course, if they denounce you, your career is finished, and it never goes back up. The agents can disappear. They usually don't live in the country where you're operating in, and they're certainly not going to climb the ladder, follow the money back to Asia, right? So the players are often the last link in the chain and the only link in the chain to fall if the fix is found. On top of that, match fixing is not a crime in most countries.
Really?
It's not a crime in the US.
Really?
Federally, match fixing is not an offense.
The gambling part and the bribing part?
Bribery is an offense, but only if there's an actual demonstrable bribery act. Nevada and New Jersey, obviously states with a rich sporting background, have specific statutes against the manipulation of sports competition. But since the money doesn't usually stay in the US and goes abroad, it's not being followed.
So if I'm a professional pickleball player or something like that, you can say, I'll give you $5,000 to lose this match, and that's not illegal?
Not as its own offense.
That is crazy.
If I can show that I paid you money, right? I bribed you. That's the offense. The fixing of the match in itself, no.
So if I just fix the match because I am doing you a favor, that's not illegal.
NBA, the MLB, there's plenty of cases of players being found guilty of altering a match. They're often banned for life from the league, or they're banned for multiple years. They're fined, but that's within the power of the league or their team.
It's not criminal.
It's not criminal.
Wow. And so you mentioned the money goes to Asia. So is this like a Chinese crime syndicate or something like that?
So China has a very nice defense about this. Gambling of any kind is illegal in China. They crack down on mahjong halls in China, right? So betting of any kind is illegal in China. But the triads have moved to Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand. You may have heard of these scam compounds.
Yeah, we did a show about that with Nathan, who introduced us.
Nathan does that very well. Those compounds are connected to, they're essentially scam cities. You can go there and set up your criminal operation, whatever it might be. So often it's romance scams or fraud scams, but running an illegal betting syndicate, absolutely come in. multiple sponsors of top European soccer teams, including champions of the Premier League in England. So some of the wealthiest sports properties in the world have had shirt sponsors that are linked to these scam compounds.
Yeah, I have questions about that, and we'll get to those, because I noticed that gambling is illegal in some of these jurisdictions, but the team that plays for that area, they're sponsored by a gambling company, and I'm just kind of like, okay, technically that's probably legal, but it's a little bit like, I mean, prostitution's illegal in California, and it would be really weird if a brothel sponsored your local sports team.
Wouldn't be surprised if we're going there, to be honest.
Wouldn't be illegal, technically. Right, okay, so back to the match fixing. So these are like Chinese crime syndicates, Russian crime syndicates maybe as well. One thing that I saw in an article that you wrote, Singaporeans, that I didn't really see coming, because you don't think of Singapore as like an organized crime kind of city.
For financial crime, it's rife.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the Singaporeans are usually in charge of the match fixing, right? So it doesn't mean that the operations are based on the money's going there, but a lot of wealthy Singaporeans do invest in both manipulation of legal betting and their own offline or off-book illegal betting sites. So Singapore, think of it more as like a Dubai, kind of like a control hub. Gotcha.
Okay, so they tell the player you're going to throw the match or you're going to get a red card by punching someone in the face in the first half, whatever it is. And they, I assume, they're betting on this, knowing it's going to happen, which is the unfair advantage. So there's the profit. How big is the industry for
the UN brace for this one? Mm-hmm. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime said that illegal betting is worth $1.7 trillion a year. And I did say trillion, didn't misspeak.
Wow, that is so much more. that is I would have been really surprised if you said 50 or 100 billion, not 17 times that. Wow.
We are talking, the cases that we're talking about are the visible ones. The ones where everything went right in terms of enforcement, where it was a match fix in a Western European country usually, where the authority cared enough to report it, where there was an investigation announced, where someone might have been arrested or suspended. That's a low percentage of cases. I work with, independent betting observers who are flagging matches all over the place. The Israeli third division in football, Colombia, Mexico, Lithuanian ping pong. I'm not joking. Right now, one of the hubs is Turkish women's basketball.
Wow.
Just imagine what you think professional sports is, and worst thing, these betting companies and these data companies are listed on the stock exchange. So they need to be showing continuous year-on-year growth. How do you show that growth? By offering new data and new leagues. Mm-hmm. That's why now you're offering Mongolian second division women's football.
Yeah.
Where we're sitting now, Portugal. The under-23 Portuguese the Portuguese men's league for under-23s had 30 million euros bet on it in the 2022-2023 season.
For those of us that don't understand the divisions, Division 1 is what, like Manchester United versus, I don't know.
Yeah. So Division 1 would be like the top division in the country.
Right. Okay.
So the English Premier League, yeah, or the Serie A in Italy. Those are the top teams. You don't see many match fixing cases at those leagues, but you do see them. That's what's surprising. These guys are making millions of dollars, and you still see a handful of cases. Mm-hmm. And for every handful that you see, there's a bunch that you didn't see.
They didn't get caught. Okay, so that's Division 1. Division 2 is like the teams that those teams pick from when somebody's a standout. They pull from those like a farm team.
It doesn't necessarily work like that as in the US, like with the farming teams. The US tends to just have their top divisions. But you can get relegated if you lose in the Premier League, you get relegated to the second division. And the lower down you go, the more likely you are going to find match fixing, because those players are operating at a level where the data is being offered for betting, where there's less supervision and the salaries are not high enough to protect them.
Yeah, I would imagine at the time where you are maybe making a minimum wage, essentially playing professional basketball in Serbia, it's more tempting to double your salary by, or who knows, 10x your salary by match fixing even just a few times. And then below that are the people that it's essentially a part-time job that maybe pays for their travel, right?
I was recently in Slovakia for a conference, and they told me that there was a 6th division Slovakian game, which is village soccer at that point, right? Mm-hmm. Villages with 300 euros. And there were 8 Brazilian players playing at this level. I'm like, what? Sorry. I've been covering this for a while. How?
Right.
They were living in a high school gym. And indeed, the matches were fixed, and there was betting in Asia offered on that level. So village for imagine the lowest possible soccer game you can imagine, and there were 8 Brazilian players, and it was fixed. And who was paying these guys? The local business owner of the village who wanted to win over his rival business in the next village over at that level.
So he's recruiting Brazilian soccer players to come live in rural Slovakia.
Right. And just get a hot meal and living in a high school gym and making a few €1,000.
Wow. That's maybe not quite illegal human trafficking, but like right on the edge of weird.
Right on the cusp.
Yeah, right on the cusp.
I had that same question. They're like, well, they came here. I asked them, like, do these guys, what happens to these guys? I asked the police chief of Slovakia. He's like, they leave after a while. Sometimes we catch them and they get deported. Sometimes they get arrested for drug trafficking.
Oh, so they're here illegally.
They're here legally, but they overstay their visas.
Right, okay.
Or, and that's the problem. The problem is we might be able to track some of these cases when it happens at the top division in England or France or Portugal. Of those 140 kids that were caught in Portugal at that academy I mentioned, most of these kids, we don't know what happened. Most of them got deported back home. Most of them might be somewhere else. And you get involved in human trafficking, prostitution, drug trafficking. Sadly, it's not just they then get asked to fix football matches. They are abandoned without a community. They're minors.
Right.
You can imagine
right.
what they're
they'll
exposed
do
to.
Anything potentially to survive. So.
And can be manipulated. We're talking about kids.
Yeah.
Right? Teenage
that's really
boys.
Sad. That's really sad. And what about officials besides the players? Are there it seems like a dumb question. Are there corrupt officials then as well, or is it just easier to corrupt a player?
So it depends what you want. When you get into friendly matches, so this is a thing that happens a lot in soccer, you have friendlies, right? Outside of the season, a team from Portugal might play a team from Denmark at a camp in Cyprus or in Greece. Those are catnip to organized crime. And I want to be clear, this is organized crime.
Yeah.
This is not just some random little crime thing. It's organized crime. There was a match recently in Cyprus we were looking at, $180,000 bet on that match, on the result. Rarely was the result. And we looked at the teams, top team from Denmark, top team from Greece. The referee was the local taverna owner. Literally, the owner of the pub across the street was the referee.
So they don't have a better ref for...
It's not a sanctioned match. It's not controlled by anyone. So the teams are just like, oh, we want to play a friendly. Like, here's the referee. They're not going to ask who it is. So the
assumption is it's just a normal ref who's not. But this is a ref who was like, I'm going to make one team win.
And the fix was done through the travel company. The travel company that organizes the friendly matches say, come for a soccer camp in Cyprus. We'll have opponents for you. They're the ones who are manipulating the fix.
Gosh, this is so weird. But it's all for gambling, right? Because I think a lot of people are wondering why bother, but it has to be because of the gambling. And you mentioned, what was it, $1.7 trillion. I read that 2/3 of all bets placed on the Super Bowl, so the American Super Bowl, were illegal. That's 2/3 of all bets. They're basically on offshore gambling websites, platforms. And I think that was, 228 million out of a total of 350 million wagers. Even though what's weird is sports betting is legal. So why would you bet on an illegal platform? That's, I think, what I don't necessarily understand. Is it because you don't want to pay taxes on your winnings, or you're laundering money?
You're laundering money. You don't want to pay taxes.
Okay.
The amounts you can bet are higher than you could on a legal platform.
Oh, is that because it's regulated?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And you don't want anybody tracking what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or you're just an addict. Or you are just an addict and you want to be able to bet as much as you want. It's not all, the punters are usually all high wealth individuals who are not organizing the illegal bet.
What are the, punters?
High net worth individuals
Gotcha.
Who like to gamble, criminal organizations who want to launder money, who are going to get notified. They're going to be in a Signal group or a Telegram group or a secret messaging service and being told, okay, they don't know what's happening. They'll just be told, today you're going to bet on Lithuanian ping pong. That guy, bet this. They're not the ones controlling. They're just being told what to bet. And of course, the illegal betting syndicate is going to get a cut of that. But it's a surefire win, right? The house always wins, but in a reversed way.
Where are these illegal gambling sites headquartered? I mean, where do they run?
So it depends. If you wanted to set up an illegal gambling website tomorrow, you can download and get access to a setup website for $15,000 tomorrow. Anywhere.
People are selling the ready-made gambling website.
You can buy the literal templates with everything set up.
I guess they're not worried about competition if they're selling you the actual coded templates.
Exactly. I mean, the data is available. Wait, if you know where to look, the data is available. So you can just set that up, and then it's up to you to build your own network of people who are going to participate. On top of that, it's very, very, very rare for someone to fall at that level. So the organizers of these gambling rings almost never get worried. I've only seen one arrest in the last year of like a top match fixer that was in China. So why do it? Because you can do it off book, because you can do it in ways that will not be tracked, and because you're being given surefire wins, right? The owner of the illegal ring has every intention of the fix working.
Wow. I mean, Americans are not immune to this. I know we're focused on Europe because we're in Europe, and that's where you sort of focus your work. But it says Americans wagered approximately $5.37 billion, but only 1.4 billion was through legal regulated channels. So the remaining $4 billion went to the black market. That's just the United States in gambling.
I would assume those numbers are low.
You'd assume that's low. That might have even been just for the Super Bowl. I'm not sure. I should probably have clarified that in my research. But I worry about younger people. Like, look, if you're an adult and you're a gambling addict, I feel for you. But I see a lot. I'm addicted to Reddit. That's my vice. I see a lot of people go, how do I stop gambling? And I'm like, well, how old are you? And they'll be like, I'm 17, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, okay, so you're like stealing from your parents to bet on soccer matches at age 17. This is really bad. And they're using a lot of illegal platforms, one, because they're underage, and well, that's probably one of the main reasons, and two, they don't go, this gambling site that I saw advertised on my favorite porn site is not regulated. I did a bunch of due diligence before putting my money in there. I mean, they're just not doing that. They're kids.
Tracking your data, stealing your credit card information.
Right.
On top of that, even legal betting platforms, and by the way, I don't oppose betting. I do think in the next 20 years, we're going to see it as the same as we did tobacco in terms of the damage it's doing to society.
I hate gambling. I don't accept them as sponsors on the show. So I feel free to shite all over. Betting is a natural human impulse, like taking narcotics. So regulating it and legalizing it makes sense. However, the level to which it's reached and the penetration with younger people is absolutely awful. Both legal and illegal. I've seen adverts for illegal betting sites. You have no idea whether it's an illegal betting site, whether it's a front that's taking you somewhere else, and no one is no one's looking at
trained for that. With young people, the problem is as well that it's made to look sexy. It's made to look attractive. It's almost pornographic in the allure, right?
It is funny you should say that because they really do know where to advertise. I have seen betting ads on porn videos, which I was watching in preparation for this show in my professional duties for science, of course. But I saw that and I thought, what a weird ad. And then I realized, no, this makes perfect sense. The target demographic for degenerate gambling might also overlap quite significantly with people who use a ton of pornography, which is like young or middle-aged dudes.
And the criminal organizations who run illegal betting overlap very handily with the criminal organizations running human trafficking for pornographic reasons.
Exactly.
It's the same ownership.
Trafficking a couple Brazilian guys is nothing compared to the hundreds of Romanian women that we've used to put videos up on this website. Yeah, it's crazy to me how much overlap there seems to be in these different segments of organized crime. It's like where you see match fixing, you see human trafficking, and you see, of course, the gambling, which is adjacent to the pornography, which is adjacent to the crypto, which is adjacent to the money laundering. I mean, it's all one big dirty chessboard.
I mean, organized crime is the most adaptable business in the world. That's an old adage. It also follows the path of least resistance. And right now, as I said, match fixing, if you're catching the athlete who was in on the fix or the coach, you might go one level up, right? You're never going to go all the way back. The money can't be traced. And there's no effort to follow the money in match-fixing investigations. In the US, unless you connect it to a larger racketeering problem or a larger drug trafficking problem, in which case you can build it as part of a RICO case. But that's never happening, especially with the current administration where the RICOs are being done really pathetically. On top of that, we see it at the top level. Adam Rozier, the NBA player, this year or late last year got popped for artificially performing badly in a match. In January 2025, I think, his financier, I forget the name, had placed 30 bets at a Mississippi casino, the Mississippi sports book, on Adam Rozier underperforming. Now, that was egregious, obviously. That was badly done. You place 30 bets like that, you're going to get caught. The guy got arrested. But he's probably going to get off with a slap on the wrist. Maybe a small suspended sentence and a multi-thousand fine. we see it time and time again at the top level. And at the top level, it's not often Asian syndicates. It's these guys are generationally wealthy. It's they want to make their uncle rich. They want to make their friends in their hometown rich, right? So you've got a bunch of yahoos in a famous athlete's hometown in Brazil or in the US betting on him, and he throws a match. So those are the cases that are being reported. And so people think that's what it is. Oh yeah, I'm just making my friends rich. No. It's way darker than that.
Yeah, that is darker. It's beyond lost tax dollars. How does the dominance of illegal betting undermine, can I say, responsible gambling efforts? Or, I mean, the sports integrity implications are pretty clear, but it seems like beyond lost tax revenue, how does this corrupt the sport?
This is something we've been looking at a lot. I run a website called the Sports and Crime Briefing, which is, I think, the only newsletter looking at all sports at all crimes in all sports. And it's pathetic. Honestly, the leagues claim to have very little information about this. All leagues have an integrity division, and the investigators at that level do great work, but they're funded a fraction of what the business end is getting, of what the marketing end is getting. So marketing will always trump integrity in every sport that I have encountered. And then we get into the problem of parallel sports. In football, in basketball, in tennis, you're now beginning to get sophisticated investigators who are quite savvy as to what's going on, especially in tennis. Tennis does amazing work at detecting match fixing. So you actually see quite less alerts in tennis than you used to. So now you have entire leagues being created, from soccer to pickleball, outside the jurisdiction of traditional federations, right? In fact, there's a fear now that LeBron is going to invest in a rival NBA structure, rival basketball structure.
Really? Wow.
There's a fear that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to do the same with soccer. And so those leagues are also selling their betting data through the same data companies as traditional sports, but with no federation overseeing them.
Although when you think about FIFA, maybe you can only go up from there.
For sure. FIFA is sclerotically corrupt.
Yeah.
Comically so.
Yeah.
And the World Cup in the US is going to be a farce, I think.
I want to hear about
betting.
that in a minute. Finish your thought. I have another
question. So the problem for modern sports is you have a lot of people who are trying to protect their sports. But if, for example, table tennis is very easy to manipulate because it's just two players, so you can very easily throw a match. But it's so easy to manipulate table tennis that you have entire leagues that exist only for betting.
So this is exactly where I was going. I saw this video that I mentioned, I think, earlier in our conversation, where there's all these, I guess they're real sports, but they're kind of fake sports, where it was like one of them was two guys sitting, it was two guys sitting at a table across from each other, and the table has like walls where your feet are so that you can't go out, and you're seated. So it's almost like remember those old video games from the 80s where you'd play Pac-Man opposite someone else and it was a table you could set your beer on? It was like that, but it was soccer, and they're just sort of kicking and moving their feet around, and you can watch this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's probably like 30 different two pair guys playing this. And when they score, they don't cheer. They're just like, they just rub their eyes because they've been awake for so long or whatever it is. And it's just there for gambling. And then there's 2-on-2 soccer, and it's like two kind of fat Russian dudes that are wearing Manchester United jerseys, and then when they're done with that, and it's like a windowless room with fluorescent lighting, and you can't tell where it is or what time of day it is, and then they just take off their jersey and put on a Madrid jersey.
And they have sponsors. There's
really?
Hoardings on the side of those 2-on-2, 3-on-3.
Oh, I just thought that was for
Russian
aesthetic
guys.
purposes.
No, they actually have sponsors.
That's insane to me. So this is just for gambling. Like they're making these sports so people can bet on them because there's not enough real sports in the world.
If there's a demand for it. If they're doing it, it's because people are gambling on it.
But like, aren't there enough actual sports being played at any given time that you can bet on? Why make fake new ones that are not?
Because I guess there are times of day where, and you see, if you track the gambling for those sports that are 24 hours a day, in the evening in the US or in the evening in Europe, you'll see a spike in those sports because there's no professional sports happening in Europe at that time.
Oh my God.
So you see these three Russian guys wearing Manchester United shirts and Paris Saint-Germain shirts, and they're advertising it as 3-on-3 Man United against Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
And then the same three guys that take a drink change their shirts into, Lisbon versus Madrid.
Yeah.
And it's the same players.
And and you could just something about them just says not professional athlete. I mean, technically they are professional athletes, but they don't quite have the physique of most
They don't look like Cristiano Ronaldo. No. And there's no way to crack down on that because how is it illegal?
Well, also, where are they?
So they've been there's been an amazing investigation done by a newspaper called Josimar that geo-track these guys. Like we know they track the warehouse. It's in Western Russia or in Ukraine or in Poland or in Lithuania. But why is it illegal?
Yeah,
Under what jurisdiction are they operating?
It's a hobby league, right? I mean, you're allowed to play 3-on-3 drunk soccer with your buddies, I guess.
What should be illegal is you shouldn't be offering betting data on this, right? But again, who's enforcing that?
Right.
I think there is a pushback now against the level to which the betting industry facilitates spot fixing. Just to bring it back to US for a second, you followed the sex toys being thrown at WNBA games in the last.
I just saw that today.
Right.
It was something about people are throwing dildos on the court, so they're thinking about running matches with no fans.
And they're making millions of it. There's a meme coin called Green Dildo Coin.
Of course there is.
That arranged for these green dildos to be thrown onto WNBA courts. So I think it's happened 9 or 10 times. And the value of the coin is sort of $15 million, like the market cap is at $15 million. And there was a trading volume of $1.5 billion in the last 48 hours.
Oh my God.
And Donald Trump Jr. shared a meme of his dad, the president of the United States, throwing a green dildo from the top of the White House onto a WNBA court.
No, get out of here.
Swear to God. With the top comment, America is back.
I mean, it's on brand for us right now. What can I say?
The owners of Green Dildo
insane.
Coin made more money than the WNBA players made last year. And there are now dildo dailies on sportsbooks where you can bet as to what game will they be throwing a dildo next and what color will it be, until it was suspended, not because it's shocking, but because of insider trading. The guy who's going to throw the dildo could just bet on himself doing it.
Sure.
Do you see the level of absurdity which we've reached?
At that point, if you buy that meme coin, you just deserve to lose your money. I mean, there's a point at which my sympathy sort of wanes.
Of course, but what does it do to women's sports?
Right. Well, that's the real casualty is now the article I saw was they're going to have to play with no fans sometimes because they can't actually run the match, which is
because today they're doing no bag. You can't come in with any sort of bag. So of course it commoditizes sport in a way that is even more twisted than it already is.
People might sneak their dildos in different ways. I'll leave that part up to your imagination. I don't want to give anybody any ideas.
Lord, Jordan.
Hey, this is my show. I can be disgusting. But so these back to these fake sports. But by the way, we'll link to that video in the show notes because it's so weird. I mean, when you see the fake sports, you're just. It's a little, it does remind me of the scam compounds in Cambodia kind of thing, because you see how tired some of these people look playing these sports. There's a clip where the guy's playing the table soccer and he scores again and his reaction is just, like he just does one of these and he's just rubbing his eye. Like this is what I look like at 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm stuck at an airport lounge, I'm just, and that's this man's life. And it's basically like, you can just see that he's going, still better than being homeless, or like still better than living in my parents' basement, or whatever sort of like terrible situation this guy came out of to work as a sports slave, kind of, because they're there for hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, playing this every day.
And it's getting worse. Now we're seeing esports being taken over by match fixing.
Oh wow!
So
I guess
League of Legends has had plenty of scandals recently. With Asian teams, one in Portugal quite recently, throwing a match.
But you mentioned sponsors as well. One thing I notice is that teams everywhere, just of any kind, are overwhelmingly sponsored by crypto platforms, gambling platforms, even in California. I mean, I live in Silicon Valley, and I think it's like the crypto.com arena or whatever's right near us, and there was another one near us that I think was also FTX or something like that, some other crypto thing. There's something near me that's another crypto platform or was a crypto platform. It just seems bizarre to me that even in places where gambling is actually illegal, a gambling or crypto company will sponsor these teams. And what's the logic here? Are they aimed at overseas markets? Is that
absolutely
so televised stuff?
This happened 2 weeks ago. The champions of Italy in football, Napoli, the team from Naples, the team that had Diego Maradona back in the day, big team with a huge international following, signs a gambling sponsor, partner for this coming season. Within 24 hours, the Italian regulators slapped them down going, that brand is illegal in Italy. You're not allowed to sponsor them in Italy. Italian people are not allowed to access this website. So they had to shut down the link to the gambling website on the Italian website. But it's allowed to continue elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the champions of Italy partnering with a brand that is illegal in their own country.
Wow.
Worse than that, in England, there's plenty of cases of Manchester City partnering on their training jerseys with a brand that has not existed for more than 2 weeks in the UK. It's always some weird combination of letters and numbers, 7xbet, 1xbet.
Oh, I find those very confusing. I'm like, one win, 1x win, 10x win, 7xbet.
They're all owned by like one or two companies.
Okay.
They're just rebranding all the time.
That makes so much, because I was just thinking, have these people not looked at the competition and realized it sounds similar? And now I feel like a dumbass for not realizing that's the point.
So that's when it goes back to the scam compounds. You've got companies that we know are operating or own some of these scam compounds that are running, essentially just endlessly generating new types of betting companies and finding ways to sign with the biggest sports brands in the world.
Crazy.
And so you ask, well, isn't there a know your sponsor rule? And no, there isn't.
No.
There is no requirement at the moment to know your sponsor in European football. I don't know enough in the US to know about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's opportunities there as well.
So basically, if the check clears, you can sponsor a sports team.
Until the sponsor is found to have committed a criminal act.
Right.
And in which case they're quickly taken off the jersey and nobody talks about it anymore.
I see.
But you ask Nathan, you drive in Vietnam, you drive in Cambodia, you will see billboards with the biggest soccer stars in the world. Often just retired, so they can't be bothered. But the Luis Suarez, the Teddy Sheringham's, people that everybody knows, and they're on billboards there. Official partner of 2x bet, 9x win, whatever meme generator they use that day.
Yeah, jeez. I noticed also a lot of crypto platforms are also betting platforms. I had to crank up the VPN and look at these sites and make accounts on a few of them with a fake email address because I don't use any of this stuff. But I noticed that a lot of it is like, I mean, crypto has always been kind of a casino in the first place. I mean, look, you can buy Bitcoin, and if you held it, like a few folks I know, you did really well. Ethereum, same thing. But like most of green dildo coin, for example, it's just a way to gamble and launder money for most people. NFTs, same thing. So these crypto platforms are also betting platforms, and it's amazing how adjacent this all is to like pornography, some pornography, the human trafficking, the gambling. There's a source, Play the Game, which I'm not exactly sure what that is, but probably
the fantastic organization based in Scandinavia.
I see. Thank you. I was hoping you would know. They found betting and crypto sponsorships. So betting sponsorships, there's 173. Crypto sponsorships, 172 in 9 leagues. I don't know how many teams there are in 9 leagues, but that's a lot of sponsorships if you're approaching 200. I mean, that's just got to be the majority.
If you are a struggling team at any level in the European ecosphere, and I would imagine the American one, certainly in Africa and Latin America,
sure,
betting companies will knock on your door. And through betting companies, you allow in drug traffickers. The number of cases now where we see of drug traffickers trying to buy European soccer teams through shady companies that seem to be crypto, that seem to be betting, and nobody's really asking as long as the check clears.
Right, because it's there. So they use their money laundering company to also sponsor a sports team.
I work a lot with law enforcement, and I'm screaming at law enforcement, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
This is genuinely one of the most innovative criminal threats you've seen in years. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares at the moment, or one or two will listen. But it's reaching a critical mass, and I think in the next decade you're going to see, as the betting and gambling, advertising, and associated addictions spirals to crisis level, people are going to begin noticing these things. We're saying it now.
Yeah.
I hope it reaches critical mass and receives international law enforcement attention.
Do you consult for law enforcement on this?
Yeah, I do trainings on law enforcement on match fixing, on sports and corruption, on how to track sponsorships, on how betting companies operate.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad somebody's doing that. Crypto transactions, obviously notoriously hard to, well, depending on the type of blockchain, hard to trace.
All right, everybody, this video is brought to you by HVMN, and it is worth hearing about, especially if you're looking for appetite suppression. You ever try fasting, then your stomach starts planning a mutiny around hour 14? Enter Ketone IQ from HVMN. It is a great tool for appetite control and clean energy. It helps suppress ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone. It helps boost leptin, your fullness signal, so you feel satisfied even without food. Plus, it gives your brain and body clean fuel without breaking your fast. So you're still in ketosis, you're still burning fat just without the hanger. It's like telling your cravings, not right now or not today. Fasting is hard. HVMN makes it a whole lot easier. Try Ketone IQ. Go to hvmn.com. Enter promo code Jordan for 20% off Ketone IQ.
The money laundering concern is really clear here. I mean, UN data estimates $142 billion annually in terms of money laundering on crypto platforms. That almost sounds low to me, but $142 billion is still a hell of a lot of money. That is going to make this problem worse, right? Because drug cartels need to launder money, and they have a seemingly unlimited amount of money to launder. And this is a great way to do it.
The PCC is Brazil's largest drug gang, and it's one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in the world.
Yeah.
They largely used Portugal as like a backdoor for a long time.
Okay.
The PCC is now moving into Portugal actively. And from Portugal, they can connect with other European organizations, Albanian, Italian mafia. One of the main ways they are doing it is football, soccer. They control football agents back home. They control teams back home. They can transfer, they buy teams here or control teams here. They will transfer players over at like a greatly inflated cost. So that's a money laundering vector right there. And that's, hundreds of thousands, millions of euros for one player.
Didn't even think of it.
And FIFA just, as long as the contract's approved, they're not worrying about, this player suddenly is worth 2 million euros, 1 million euro. How is he worth that much? They don't care.
It just, that's really hard to, I mean, FIFA's corrupt as hell, but even that's hard to police. How are you going to decide the economic value of every player and then say you're overpaying for them? That you have to make that argument with every freaking trade?
Play the Game that you just mentioned is pushing for an independent sport regulator for all sports all around the world. It's an ambitious goal, and I support it wholeheartedly. Yeah. I've been on there. I'm going to that conference in October, but it's never going to happen. Who's going to finance that? Sport has this mystique of we self-regulate, we sell dreams, we sell unity. And when you see the Olympics or the World Cup, it's hard to disagree. But underneath that, it's getting dirtier and dirtier.
Nobody wants to hire their own cops that have power over them that they don't control, that could limit the amount of money that they make off of something. They're going to say, we've got this, don't worry.
Of course.
It seems like, and I know I'm going to sound like a stick in the mud here, but you got player shirts, perimeter boards. What do you call those?
Hoardings, yeah.
Hoardings, TV ads. They're all saturated with gambling brands and questionable type of stuff. It seems like, and again, I'm picking on soccer here, football, but it seems like they're really normalizing addiction and betting. Maybe more than, I'm not paying as much attention to this in the United States, but it really seems normalized. It really seems like they kind of are just complicit with letting this happen.
It's being seen as, as you said, it's your problem, right? If you choose to bet. I think the awareness of treating gambling addicts as patients and not as victim blaming them, of course, people should be able to resist. But it's the same psychological triggers as drugs, as pornography, as prostitution. It is an addiction. And
you're not going to let Pornhub sponsor your soccer team. You're not going to let a drug cartel, openly. You're not going to let cocaine sponsor your sports team. You're going to let the drug cartel do it because the check will clear.
But also, there are attempts to check this, and they're always defeated, right? I live in the Netherlands, which is one of the strongest countries to stop gambling. They only legalized sports gambling a few years ago, and then very quickly restricted it, and then did it again this year when they saw the damage that it took. In other countries, it's not happening. For example, there's a convention in Europe called the Macalin Convention, which obliges countries that sign it to have prosecutors trained in sports manipulation. And they share information, they do great work. There's one country in Europe, Malta, that little island in the Mediterranean, for which gambling is a huge percentage of their revenue. Gambling companies are headquartered there. So they block bans on gambling companies at the European level going, we're a member of the EU, we're a member of the Macalin Convention, and we disagree with you. In fact, it's called the Malta deadlock, because gambling companies are allowed to continue operating in abusive ways, in ways that go against the law in other countries where they operate, but they're protected by a country which makes a lot of money off them. In Australia, which I know is not necessarily relevant, in Australia you have a situation where the federations, the football, the rugby, the cricket federations, make money on every time someone bets legally on the sports that they regulate.
Oh,
How
wow. Come on, Australia.
Exactly.
Wow. That's one of the most egregious examples of misaligned incentives.
And it's rare, but the precedent's now been created in a major sporting destination. How long before, FIFA?
Yeah.
Would it surprise you if tomorrow FIFA pulled that stunt?
Yeah.
Or the NBA? Wouldn't surprise
This
me.
gambling thing's out of control. We need to make our own gambling platform, and now this is the only one that everybody's allowed to use. Yeah.
Or we ally with the official sportsbooks
Sure.
and you trade through us, and we make a
Jeez.
cut off every bet.
Crazy. I want to talk about the World Cup. I know it's split between the U.S., Canada, Mexico. Between the three of us, I mean, maybe less so Canada, we've got organized crime up the wazoo. We got drug cartels and all kinds of things that we just talked about before in the U.S. and Mexico. What's that? Is that going to have an effect on the World Cup? I feel like it has to.
In terms of fixing World Cup games, almost not at all.
Mhm.
There, however, the integrity is very strong.
Okay.
But Canada is very strong at regulating organized crime, especially match fixing. In fact, I can't recall. There are some in lower division soccer in Canada. There's been a few match fixing alerts. In the US, you now have a task force between FIFA, Gianni Infantino, who's the president of FIFA, and the White House. In fact, as of this week, President Donald Trump is personally in charge of that task force. To give you an idea of how that task force is probably just a money-making engine, there was the Club World Cup recently in the US, financed by Saudi Arabia. $1 billion in prize money for the entire pool of teams that were there from around the world. Saudi Arabia bought it, financed it, paid for the trophy, owns the airline that took most of the teams there, owns several of the teams that were performing there. One of the teams was, in fact, the Saudi Arabian champion. And they paid for a trophy that was millions of dollars. The value of the trophy was gold and silver and other jewelry bullshit. They showed it off at the White House, and Trump said, "Yeah, I'm keeping it."
Oh, I think I heard about this. Yeah,
they had to rush to make like a cheaper copy that they gave to Chelsea, the winners, and the original trophy is in the White House with a plaque that says "Gift from FIFA." It wasn't a gift from FIFA.
That's
Trump
insane.
just went, "Mine now."
Oh my God! Wait, didn't that happen recently again with some other medal or something? And the guy didn't. Someone just told me the story yesterday where he took like a medal from a player, and the guy had to get another one.
Oh, I would not be surprised.
That needs a fact check because they could be talking about the thing you just told me.
I think it's the same because at the Club World Cup ceremony, where Chelsea, the English team, wins the cup, and Trump is there. Trump comes out, gives them the cup, and then just the fake version because he kept the real one, and then he just hangs out with the team.
Yes.
So in the official
This is what
Club World Cup like winner's shot, you got Trump in the second row because he's athletic.
It's really funny.
Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, is going to use every opportunity to make money legally within FIFA statutes. But FIFA's a private company. This is what people need to understand. Sports regulators are private companies, right? So they have every intention of making as much money as possible. So the World Cup is going to be glorious for that. In Mexico, you got a different kind of problem. Because organized crime actually in Mexico didn't look at football much for a long time. Match fixing in Mexico was never a big issue until the last couple of years. But here's an example. The Jalisco Cartel New Generation, I published a book about them last year, where we talked about how Chivas Guadalajara, one of the big teams in Mexico, has won multiple championships, had a Serbian coach. They paid for a really like top-level Serbian coach, former coach of the Serbian national team. And he arrived and the players were out of control, partying, bringing girls into the lockers. So he suspends the top 3 earning players of the team going, "You're done. They brought prostitutes into the locker room. You're suspended for X number of games." 2 days later, he gets a phone call from someone going, "You're going to play them or else."
Right. Wow.
And it's from the CJNG, the Jalisco Cartel New Generation, the second biggest cartel in Mexico. Not because they were fixing the games, because those players knew them and just called them up and said, "Hey, can you just lean on them?" 2 months later, the coach quits.
Yeah.
As you would.
Yeah, because he can't do his job.
Of course.
Yeah.
So again, it's not that the matches in Mexico are going to be fixed, but there's plenty of money to be made around that, either from controlling the illegal betting or, as is happening more and more, shaking down cargo trucks. This is a major problem now in Mexico where the cargo jackings, truck hijackings, corruption inside ports, corruption inside airports is through the roof. It's always happened on Mexican companies. You now have multinational companies leaving Mexico because they're being extorted to a point where their margins are being dropped.
So what's going on? They're shipping in a bunch of, I don't know, laptop motherboards, and then they're just half of them end up missing?
Name your industry.
I see.
There's a major port right next to Guadalajara in Jalisco where some games will be played. And that highway between the port and Guadalajara is truck jacking central.
Jeez.
So we're talking actually to some companies who are sponsors of World Cup or, contractors for logistics who are bringing in extra security. And they're thinking about putting armed guys on every truck. That's not going to be cost effective. But the fact that we're talking about it for an event like the World Cup is aberrant.
That's insane that you're looking. I mean, so basically what you're saying is the World Cup suppliers are going to have to deal with truck jacking on the way to,
or at least the threat of it.
Or the threat of it on the way to the World Cup.
Probably during the World Cup, there's going to be police and security everywhere.
Yeah.
So during the World Cup, probably not. But in the run up to it, absolutely.
Man, it's really a shame. I used to live in Guadalajara. It's an amazing city. It was really safe. This is a long time ago. This is like 25 years ago. And so to hear people be like, yeah, it's not safe to go here, here, and here. And it's like, what? That place, you could sleep outside at that place 25 years ago. Not recommended necessarily, but like the fact that you can't walk around here, here, and here without worrying about that. I mean, it's just really, really sad. It just shows you how pervasive
I want to
all
push back. I want to just dismiss one thing. Fans who might listen to this who are thinking about going to Mexico, you can go to Mexico and you'll have an amazing time.
Oh, yeah.
And safely attend the games.
Thank you for that.
And I really want to stress that. However, the ways in which cartels are making money in Mexico is rapidly diversifying. And as I mentioned, sports being a catnip to organized crime in Europe or in the US, same in Mexico. You talk to Mexican police and they have a point. They're like, why do we care about, illegal betting when we've got murders and fentanyl and drug trafficking to worry about? And yeah, fair point.
Yeah, fair point. It's like we're stretched a little thin with the 30,000 murders that we deal with annually in this area alone. Yeah, the World Cup should be quite interesting. It's spread across 3 countries, and that's going to be. I don't envy
the one after that is Spain, Portugal, and Morocco.
Yeah.
So which was done to open the door to Saudi Arabia. The next one after that is in Saudi Arabia alone, and they do these multi-nation. There's your corruption. They artificially constructed these multi-nation transcontinental World Cups. So each continent was accounted for, and then Asia, Saudi Arabia could have it on its own, clear.
I see. So explain that once again. They made the trifecta thing so they could cover a whole continent. But then
the North American one was a legitimate US, Canada, Mexico organic idea.
Yeah.
After that, the World Cup is on a rotation, so it has to go to different continents. And Asia was having a turn coming up, but Europe hadn't had it, Africa hadn't had it. So they gave it to Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. So those 2 continents were accounted for.
I see.
And then it had to go to Asia the time after that.
Okay.
And Saudi Arabia, which was basically financed FIFA for the last generation, just said, "Oh, we'll take it."
Oh. So did they kind of? It sounds like you're saying Saudi Arabia kind of bought FIFA, or paid for them to. Allegedly. Yeah, okay. Why do this? Just prestige? Is that kind of the thing? Like, hey, we're not just a regime that lives partially in the Stone Age or whatever. I mean, I know that sounds super offensive, and I'm sure we have Saudi listeners, and I apologize to them, but not a country known for, to be super strong on modernity and human rights.
Sports is the greatest show in the world.
Yeah.
Legitimately. It has. I worked for the Olympic Games, and the Olympic Games in China, which were very corrupt and also bought under shady circumstances. However, when you're there at the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, or you're there at the World Cup final, it does what it says on the tin. It does bring people together. It does generate global attention. It does generate goodwill. It brings people together from around the world, for sure. It also allows troublesome regimes from around the world to say, hey, look at the shiny distraction while we jail and kill political opponents back home.
Yeah.
And Saudi in football, I mean, the recent Club World Cup is evidence of that. Is it illegal? Of course not. Is it shady, anti-ethical? Yes. The team that represented the US at the Club World Cup was Inter Miami, the team that's owned by David Beckham and that plays Lionel Messi, the most famous player in the world. Why were they picked? They were not the MLS champions. They had not won the MLS Cup. They'd won like a random cup a couple of seasons ago and were grandfathered in because they wanted Messi. So it's all just, we're dancing to the Saudi tune in world football. Or Qatari.
Qatari?
Yeah.
Why? Say more about that.
So Saudi and Qatar are fairly big rivals. when it comes to sort of power and hegemony in the Middle East, with Saudi definitely ahead. And they both buy and control different sports organizations around the world for similar reasons. It's PR, it's essentially acceptance of their regimes, it's showing Saudi Arabia in a different light than what it used to be, while not changing their ways at home. It distracts the global audience. It validates them. It's essentially reputation laundering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sports washing, right? Is that the term? We did an episode about this, episode 829. It's kind of high-profile sporting events used to reshape global narratives around, controversial regimes, I guess.
And, you even have competitors at a lesser level. The United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is, it's the name of the country where Dubai is, has done it with cricket. Cricket is a sport that's very popular in India. We could do a whole episode about corruption in cricket. There's now betting leagues of cricket in the United Arab Emirates, which is a country that had, some cricketing origin, but not much, but have found that cricket is a way of selling their brand when you don't necessarily have the clout to do it at the soccer level or the basketball level.
Right. Wow. Saudi put in, let's say, $100 million a year into FIFA's coffers. Does that sound right?
Yep.
That's a lot of leverage, I would imagine, to end up with hosting rights.
It's a buyout. It's a buyout. They did it with golf. They've done it successfully with golf.
I forgot about that.
They started Live Golf or LIV Golf as a rival to PGA, which was legitimate. PGA had legitimate problems with its player base, who were annoyed at the way they were being treated. So an alternative was quickly popular, and a lot of players migrated over. And now the two organizations are merging. It's a very difficult and controversial merger, but it looks like LIV is going to become the brand.
Wow.
And of course, with the Saudi-loving, golf-loving president in the White House, makes their life even easier.
That's really something. Go ahead.
A lot of the money of LIV Golf in the US goes to Trump properties. Trump has brokered agreements in the White House where LIV tournaments are going to be played contractually in Trump resorts in America.
I think what a lot of people, where a lot of people sort of get tripped up, and I have to agree. I know we want this World Cup to be on multiple continents and sort of rotate around the world, but isn't it going to be like 120 degrees or something like that in Saudi Arabia when they play? How is that going to work? I assume the stadium is just covered and air conditioned, or
you're coming at it from an ethical perspective. You're coming at it from.
Is that my first mistake?
No, you're coming at it from the perspective of you want athletes, crowds to enjoy an event and to put it on in a way that is enjoyable to be that's out the window.
Out the window, okay.
They will play games in the middle of the night.
Oh.
In Qatar. They already did. I mean,
had not occurred to me.
You've had major sporting events in Qatar, in the Middle East, where they played games late at night, early morning.
Okay.
You can't do it in the middle of the day.
4 a.m.
4 a.m. marathon. Yeah, I think the marathons. Someone was. I was talking to someone who was thinking about the way the Olympics would be there and would have you have to have the marathon at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, which ironically would be prime time in America.
It's also probably not bad for those of us who are going to be jet lagged if we go to these events, but for anybody else who's adjusted, it's going to be quite miserable.
And if you have events at 2 o'clock in the morning or late at night, well, your betting guys in America are awake,
right? Yeah,
and your betting guys in Asia are awake.
So you can say it's about the heat, but
that's the priority.
It's about the game.
The priority is TV audiences, advertising, betting markets.
Wow.
It's no longer integrity of the athletes. FIFA, Lamine Yamal is one of the greatest young football players, soccer players in the world, plays for Barcelona. He has played at the age of 17, 5 times more games approximately than Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo had at that age.
Oh, wow.
Now you can say he's making multi-million-dollar, a year, dozens of millions of dollars a year. Why shouldn't he? Because the human body can't take it.
Yeah, he's going to be retired
You've
early.
got kids crashing out at 23, 24
sure.
with career-ending injuries 10 years before they should. Because FIFA's just adding more games and more games and more games. FIFA is at war with the players' union, FIFPro, who's saying, stop. You physically cannot do this to our players. More games, more betting.
Right, more games, more money. That's right. Oh, wow. I heard that the carbon footprint, I know a lot of people don't care about this, but the carbon footprint of the World Cup it's as big as some entire countries.
I wouldn't be, that's not something I've looked at. I apologize. It's not, but of course, just factor it in. You're expanding the number of teams. Every World Cup now, they're expanding the number of teams. It used to be 16, then it was 24. I think it's 36. I think it's about 48. Okay, at what point is there at what point do you need qualifiers?
Right, you just have everybody playing.
Yeah. Everybody playing. The World Cup used to be the best of the best. Okay, you can say that's elitist because countries with developed soccer systems are going to have the teams, France and the UK, and are always going to be there, and the other teams are going to lose. But there was a sense of accomplishment, right? Now, if it's going to be, who's going to tune in to? I apologize for listeners in those countries, but Philippines versus Paraguay. Sure, fans in those countries are going to be at the World Cup, but what achievement is there when it's 48 teams? But however, betting audiences are going to go crazy for that.
I see. God, that's crazy. It really does just go down to betting.
It really does. It's betting all the way down. It's Matryoshka dolls of betting.
Crazy to me.
Sport is a priority for organized crime in many ways. The most influential way is controlling illegal betting, $1.7 trillion in illegal betting, so that well over $2 trillion if you count legal betting, is the most important one. Because from that, you derive a slew of parallel crimes, money laundering, human trafficking. But at the heart of it, why I do what I do, why we have the Sports and Crime Briefing, we've also created the first fact-checking platform for sports called Free to Play. It's kids like Jerry. To go back to that kid in Nigeria, I'd just like kids who want to play football to not be trafficked, pleased, or to not be scammed and bankrupt their families. And no one's looking out for them. And that's what scares me. When the footballing authorities, when the sports authorities say, we're about the kids, we're about helping everybody, well, you've proven that you're not. So please up your game.
Chris Dalby, thank you very much, man. Super, it's just a fascinating dark side of sports.
Absolute pleasure, Jordan.